Managing bids over the Christmas period. It is something we are asked about a lot at the moment. My name is Eliza Carbines. I'm the founder and CEO of Tender Relief, and I've just finished the most amazing webinar on this exact topic, and I'm here to deliver you the Cliff Notes in just a couple of minutes. So if you didn't make the webinar, that's okay. We will talk you through what is most important about managing bids over the holiday period. These are the 6 categories that we're going to cover. Absolutely critical that you focus on the things that matter and allow yourself to put aside the things that perhaps don't so much when you are running on limited hours and limited staff. Like I said earlier, my name's Eliza Carbines, and I am so pleased to be here with you. Thank you for watching. So first thing, the holiday reality check. We're going to talk about the key takeaways from each section. Of course, the webinar had far more content and we'd love to have you there next time, but this is the most important thing that you need to know. A 30-day open period is not 30 productive days. It's not even 30 productive days when it's not the holidays. It's only about 21 once you take the weekends out. Over the holidays, you have even less. Be mindful as well that the whole ecosystem shuts down. What I mean by that is your subcontractors, your suppliers, your accountant, everybody else that might sit around the bid is not going to be at work either. And if they are, it might not be the right person, or they might have other priorities. Critical that you understand who's available outside of your own team. Speaking of, your executives and your CEOs, the people that need to sign off on your bid submission, if that's not you, are mostly away in January. So get those signatures early or get a contingency and a backup plan. If that is you, make sure you know what's required of you before you disappear off grid, and sort out your delegated authorities so that the bids aren't held up at the 11th hour because they don't have the right signature. Like I said earlier, even open businesses like your subcontractors have skeleton staff. Make sure that the right person is in the right company, and if not, get those contingencies in place. And just make sure you know what order everything needs to happen in. Somebody that's available this week might not be available next week. And I said this in the webinar. A lot of this stuff might feel really common sense. As I'm saying that, you might think to yourself, that's not rocket science, and it certainly isn't, but we are constantly amazed at how much the things that seem obvious when they're said out loud actually aren't considered in the planning phase. And that's not a criticism at all. We are all at risk of jumping to the more complex problems instead of looking at the critical, obvious ones right in front of our face. Speaking of bid, no bid decisions. Now, everything that we spoke about just then in section 1 will inform your bid, no bid decision. You'll find you need to be more ruthless, and you might say no more often during a holiday period than you would otherwise. And just make sure that you are thinking about the complexity of the holidays in addition to how you would normally make a bid, no bid. It is not enough to identify if you want it, if you can do it, if you've got the resources and executive support and you can deliver the contract. What you need to consider is burnout of your staff, potential reputational damage if you don't put together a very well constructed bid, and how that might be viewed from the procurer. All really important. You also don't have as much time as usual to make a bid, no bid decision. You need to do that within 48 hours. Now, it doesn't mean that you can't change your mind later, but you need a definitive direction within 2 days of the bid being released so that you can go all in on your planning, because you will front load all of your critical tasks before the break. You also need to be really clear about exactly who's going to be involved, the exact dates they're available and not, and don't make any assumptions. That includes that just because somebody is at work doesn't necessarily mean that they've got the time to work on this project or your bid. Now, of course, I'm talking as if you've got a huge team, but this also is relevant if it's only 1 or 2 people. That's totally fine. It's the principle of the thinking that really matters here. The humanity of this is also important, that last point. Protect your team, protect yourself. Being burnt out, particularly at the holidays, will almost certainly cost you more than the opportunity cost of missing a bid. Of course, that is up to you to decide what that line looks like in your own organisation. Securing extensions is really important. You have to do it correctly and you have to do it early. You've got to ask within 48 hours of the bid release. Do not wait until a week or a few days before the due date. Now, that's a rule that is agnostic to the time of year, mind you. Don't ever do that because it will look like you're quite disorganized. There's no shame in asking for an extension up front. It doesn't reflect poorly on you. But make sure you have the approach where you're very definitive. We'd like to ask for X number of business days, which would move the due date from this to this. We'd like to put in front of you a well-constructed, strategic, and considered response that offers best value. This is the second last point here. And we don't believe that's possible in the allocated business hours as part of the bid open period. Now, this is not a conversation. This is a request with an answer. You have to accept what they say. It doesn't mean that you have to bid though. So just make sure that if it comes back as a no and you don't get your extension, that you're revisiting that bid, no bid decision. Kickoff meetings typically talk about your strategy, the assignment of tasks, the due dates of those tasks, and a couple of other key points inside the bid, the construct of the bid. What you also need to consider is that the availability I spoke about earlier, front loading all of the decisions strategically to earlier in the piece rather than later. Use the kickoff meeting to set an expectation about what's due before the break begins. Now, this year, and this is 2025, we're going to be breaking probably anywhere between Friday the 19th and Tuesday the 23rd, maybe Wednesday the 24th. But you do need to have a meeting 2 days before your organization closes to check back in on all of the deliverables, who achieved what is still outstanding, and then you've got 2 days to close that out, and you will need to move very quickly. Compliance is really, really critical. It's often not the weighted criteria, but it's the pass fail. It's the thing that will get you disqualified if you don't do it right. And can I tell you that procurers are looking to put you on the no pile more than they're looking to put you on the yes pile. They want to whittle down their shortlist as quickly as possible. So don't give them a reason to easily move you to the no pile. Use checklists. Make sure that you're covering off not just on every question having an answer, but the file format that is required, the way that you need to submit, when clarification questions need to go in, all of those kinds of things, the signatures that you require, that is all very important. Now, I said this in the webinar earlier today, and I didn't like the way it tastes, but it is very true if you're in a very pressured environment, particularly over the holidays. If you need to drop anything, drop the polish and the formatting of your bid, and we don't recommend that. But what we're saying, because we want to give you practical advice, is over the holidays, if it's the difference between getting a compliant but rough bid in on time or a beautifully looking bid that's not compliant in on time, go the compliant rough version. At least you're in with a chance. Non-compliant, you'll be straight onto the no pile. It doesn't matter how aesthetically pleasing your bid is. And on that, there's not a slide for this, but I just want to point out on the very last point here, prioritization. When you're doing the written response, just make sure that you are focused on the questions or the schedules or the sections that are worth the most in terms of their evaluation weighting. And that might not go in order. It could be Schedule C that's worth 35%, and that's the heaviest weighted section. Now, this is advice that you should follow no matter the time of year, but particularly at this time of year. Do that 35% section very, very well, very, very thoroughly first, and then move on to the next highest weighted section. You want to maximize the possibility of getting a high score and game the system a little bit. Very important when you're on limited time. Of course, that was a very, very speedy version of the 45-minute webinar that we went through earlier today. Here's all of my contact details. Scan that QR code if you want to learn a little bit more about our AI product, and get in touch anytime. We are more than happy to hear from you. And happy bidding. Merry Christmas.